One. Hey guys, welcome back. Hope that you had an awesome Thanksgiving break. I'm very excited to jump into our next unit, which is going to be all about World War II. So go ahead and write down this essential question in your notes for me. And that question is, what were the causes of World War II? That's what we're going to answer before the end of this video. As usual, we got 4 things on the agenda. We're going to talk about economic problems happening in the world that leads to this rise of dictatorships popping up around the world. We'll define what dictatorship means in just a moment. Then we'll spend some time talking about how Germany expands in this time period. And finally, we'll talk about the invasion of Poland by Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany, which really triggers World War II from happening. So we start with our first block, so economic problems. Now, we're actually going to spend our unit after this talking about the Great Depression. It is a big part of America in the 20s and 30s, but it's not just an American problem. The Great Depression is the worst financial crisis we've ever had in history, and it is a global financial crisis. The United States is not the only country experiencing financial problems, like people losing their jobs, people losing their housing, and generally losing all the money that they had saved. And so what happened is, people like our little stick figure here no longer has any money and thinks, man, my government has really not helped me thrive in this environment. And so if these democracies in the world can't stop this stuff from happening, who else can maybe lead a little bit better? And so all of those existing governments became really, really weak, and dictators started coming to power as people were starting to support other candidates with different views of how to run the country. And so we see this rise of dictatorships coming out of countries like Germany, Russia, Japan, and Italy. And we're going to look at those 4 countries and dictators in our jigsaw activity coming up a little bit later. But for now, let's definitely jot down this big old word here, totalitarian. It's a big chunky word for today, but totalitarian means governments that are led by leaders who have complete control over their people. So people are suffering economically. These types of governments where the leader is in complete control are popping up all over the world, and specifically on the 4 countries listed below on your screen. These types of leaders that have complete control are dictators. And I showed you this slide at the start of class if you were with us then. But a dictator is the leader who rules the country with absolute power, and that's usually power by force. So in this kind of diagram, the dictator is the hand here, kind of manipulating the puppets, right? Manipulating the people. The hand is in charge, so is the dictator. All right, so we've covered money, we've covered new governments coming to power, and number 3 is our expansion of Germany. So the Empire of Germany at this moment is being led by a name I'm sure you're familiar with, and that is Adolf Hitler, who was the dictator of Nazi Germany. So he rises to power, and one of his promises to the German people is that he would expand the German Empire. And a couple examples of this. Number 1, throwing another vocab word at you. It's been on our word wall all year long. That word is annex. And to annex means to add or to take. So basically he looks at Austria, which is nearby Germany, and he says, we're going to take Austria and incorporate or add it to Germany. Okay, well after that, he goes the next step. And he takes a look at this map right here, and you can see this part in red. And that is the Sudetenland. I apologize if I'm butchering that. That's as best as it's going to get. Hitler demands the Sudetenland, which is part of Czechoslovakia. And he threatened to go to war if he didn't receive that territory. German people, lived there, and it was his belief that it should be incorporated into one country instead of the two different borders. And so what happened was a decision. The decision was, hey, do we let Adolf Hitler take the Sudetenland and add it to Germany because he's threatening war, and we just came off of World War I, right? That was only a couple years prior to this. We want to avoid that. Do we give it to him, or do we stand up and say no? And so the powers that be at the time, Great Britain and France, they go to they're at this event called the Munich Conference. They decide together they're going to give Hitler the Sudetenland if he promises not to take any more land for Germany. And this process is called appeasement. So appeasement means giving in to avoid war. That's exactly what's happening here. They're looking at the intent of Adolf Hitler, and they're saying, you know what, maybe if we just give him this piece of land, he'll be satisfied and he won't be so power hungry anymore. And I think that y'all can sense that that's probably wasn't the best decision, because Hitler sees that action by Britain and France as really weak. Hey, I asked for it, I demanded this land, and they just gave it to me. And so appeasement fails. Hitler and Nazi Germany decide to take the next step. They go ahead and invade Poland, and World War II begins in 1939. After they invade Poland, Germany and France declare war on Germany, does so back, and then we're into 6 years of some madness as the world fights to figure this whole thing out. So y'all are going to take a look at the 4 causes again, summarize your notes. Just a reminder, looking for notes in your own word. You should always write in complete, college-ready, big, beautiful sentences. And highlight those key points. What do you need to know as you're looking back for this? Do yourself a favor in a couple months. You're going to be studying for the STAR test. So highlight those key points. Make it a great summary. And then let's move on to our next station. Thanks, guys.